So a few weeks ago, in an effort to take some reprieve from No Laughing Armory Forger, I felt the simmering of an urge to sink my teeth into something in the survival genre. And in my searching, I stumbled upon Abiotic Factor, an early access retro art style inspired first-person survival game that really piqued my interest.
How very, very moist.
Boasting overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, a big recent update, and a style that understandably draws a lot of comparisons to Half-Life, this game just looked to offer a very different experience to what I think has become synonymous with the survival genre. And so picking up a few copies for my buddy and I and portaling headfirst into the Gate underground facility, this game is just a fucking blast. From the aforementioned retro art style to a fleshed out collection of systems that provide a good level of complexity whilst maintaining familiar patterns to let you settle into that survival game loop, to a surprisingly huge curated map that utilizes every bit of space, making exploration feel a whole lot more worthwhile and a whole lot less bloated, to just the entire game dripping with charm and this sense of whimsical wackiness that just makes it so unique to everything else. It's like Half-Life meets The Forest meets Grounded. It's evidently clear that the devs over at New Zealand-based Deep Field Games knew exactly the style and atmosphere that they were going for, and must have had a real blast developing this game given the sense of character that it has. It's a solid, fun survival game that ticks all of those basic survival game boxes, but with more than enough differences to separate it from anything else in the genre. There's still so many surprises and cool things in this game that even after countless hours roaming through labs and mines and security outposts, fighting aliens and killing henchmen, the game will still periodically throw something completely left field and different that not only keeps the game feeling new and exciting, but makes you step back and just say, man, this is fucking sick.
Oh wait, what? Oh no! Oh, what is that thing? Oh. Oh.
So Abiotic Factor is a first-person, retro-inspired, 6-player survival game, and on paper that really does sum up what this game is. It's got all your standard survival game expectations: cooking, base building, crafting, and upgrading, all the standard bells and whistles, but all very polished, each with their own personal nuances that help elevate each system beyond just the standard expectations. With base building, for example, although lacking a bit compared to other games in terms of depth, it comes with a great sense of functionality. There's a level of organization that's needed, given to the fact that you're operating in a confined space, as well as utilizing a power system that's needed to charge certain crafting benches, as being able to power your crafting benches and cooktops are only available during the day. This isn't a huge deal as nighttime is relatively short. There's also some electrical organization needed here, utilizing power boards to hook up your crafting benches to power, and you can upgrade your crafting benches with unique upgrades, like the crafting bench heals you if you're close, all of which add a nice element to a somewhat familiar system and loop, and overall is a relatively stripped back approach to base design, focusing more on the functionality and less on the design and aesthetic components, as there isn't really any of that in this game. You can find paintings and stuff in the world around you, but there's no specifically aesthetic items that you can build. It's more like lights and things like that. But I really like that. It encourages players to focus more on the exploration side of things, which is the very best component in this game. It complements this game's theme. You're stuck in an underground science facility trying to escape. You're not looking to set up shop or live to stick it out here long term, which was something that I greatly appreciated, complementing that need to explore and progress. Exploration is definitely at the heart of this game. I mean, for starters, the overall appeal of the game definitely comes from the setting and style. Wearing that Half-Life inspiration on its sleeve, the game primarily takes place in an underground facility built up of office spaces and labs, a very unique setting given the typical games we get in the survival genre. The fact that this map is ultimately boxed in really magnifies that feeling of everything in this map is handcrafted and purposeful. So many survival games boast seemingly endless maps and procedural generation that all too often can feel a bit exhausting, as there's this high risk of bloat and empty space. Abiotic Factor is the complete opposite. Each space feels meaningful, you can be certain that you've looted every nook and cranny, and overall really sells you on this location, this weird science facility. And that's not to suggest that the map is small. No, on the contrary, this game feels fucking huge. The sheer size of this facility and how much stuff there is to explore for an early access game is shocking. With twisting halls through different sectors and environments that all feel very distinct, there's this great sense of progression with exploration, as you discover various shortcuts shortcuts back to your main base that you can unlock, helping you traverse the map with more ease. The devs have incorporated a lot of really neat features and ideas that just make playing the game a lot more accessible and enjoyable and a whole lot less tedious. Like this trolley item that you can place on the ground and cart around, letting you stock up on items and loot, and then being able to teleport it back to the base. Items like these, as well as the aforementioned shortcuts, really help to cut out a lot of the potentially frustrating elements to the game, and really shows how the devs' focus was making a game that's fun and not frustrating to play. With well over 20 hours worth of gameplay for a single run, and being broken up into these different sections really gives this game a great sense of pacing, with each new area feeling like a new chapter. In addition to the main facility, there are also these other realms you can discover and venture into. I won't show much of these, as these are some of the more interesting parts of the game, but the general story here is that scientists were dabbling in portals to other dimensions, and these portals can be found around the game, acting almost like dungeons as they teleport you to a new location, letting you forage for different loot and resources and fight different enemies. I compare it to dungeons as the bulk of the main game still is centered around the original facility, but these other realms really help break up any potential monotony of being in that confined space. These areas are just so interesting and cool, and that's what I mean. There's just a lot of cool shit in this game. It doesn't take itself so seriously. It's quite a linear approach to exploration. It's not like Valheim or Breath of the Wild where you can go anywhere from the get-go, which was a nice change of pace to a lot of other survival games these days. Plenty to explore, but structured exploration with palpable progression. The crafting is also one of the other game's major standouts. There's just a whole heap of shit to unlock and craft, loads of different weapons and armor, with a lot of them crafted from like office supplies that you pick up around the map, making all your equipment feel like some duct-taped MacGyver job that gives the game a great sense of character and charm. Like throwing knives made out of pens and rubber bands to crossbows made out of staplers and table legs, and later on you start to unlock some really weird and interesting weapons that I won't spoil here, but yeah, there's some cool stuff waiting for you down the track. Resources you'll collect from the surrounding office space, and are primarily built up of office supplies like rubber bands to pipes to telephones and computer keyboards. It's a very different setting to your usual survival game, and is a refreshing change up from just mining the usual iron and stone nodes. It makes figuring out what resource contributes to what item or crafting component a lot more engaging, as well as just being really refreshing compared to everything else out there. There are traders around the map that you can swap items between, though note this doesn't include every item, as some items like power cells, once you've collected them all from the facility, need to be farmed from some of the other realms after they reset, which is a bit annoying and definitely slows the pace of the game down a bit, particularly if your whole group needs them to craft equipment. But this game had potential to be a lot more grindy, and so only having to farm a few specific resources isn't too bad. And much like the base building, the game takes a very functional approach to its crafting UI. It's very simple and easy to navigate. It's really nothing special, but it works, and in light of how good everything else is, it's very easy to forgive. Combat is also very functional. I would compare it to the combat in something like The Forest. You can use guns, spears, grenades, throwing weapons. It's a pretty standard combat system. To be honest, there's not really much to write home about here, other than it's fine and, in my opinion, doesn't detract from the game. And testing all the new weapons you unlock and craft is great, so what more could you want? There are some light RPG mechanics in here too. For starters, in character creation, you're given the option to select classes that provide different bonuses, like reduce your rate of thirst, to things like start with higher tiers of traits like cooking or strength or accuracy or whatever. To be honest, you don't really feel the impact of these traits that much. Although a nice addition to the game, playing with only one other person, these class distinctions weren't really felt much between us, given that both of us were doing everything anyway. I think these classes would be more distinctive with more players, as the space you operate in inside your base is limited, and so to make the most of it, it would be more worthwhile to stick to the respective classes that you selected, like cooking class or healing class. But overall, it doesn't feel like it changes much of the game, other than being able to use some of the higher tier weapons a bit quicker. And overall, I think this is a nice balance. It's like a light RPG mechanic. There are some minor things that do detract from the game a little bit more, but really doesn't take away from how strong the rest of the components are, and just how much Abiotic Factor has nailed its core gameplay loop and cycle. Performance could also be a bit better. Running on a 7700 XT, a lot of the time I was sitting around 50 to 60 FPS. That fluctuated a lot, dipping down to 45, which by no means made this game unplayable, but it was definitely noticeable, particularly for a game with this kind of style. I couldn't see anything on the recent updates to this game, but I feel like there was a patch that improved performance quite a bit. As logging in recently, I was now sitting at around the 100 FPS mark with dips down into like 70-80, so it looks like things have improved, which You know, if that's the case, then disregard this performance part. But yeah, for the majority of my playthrough, I was fluctuating around that 50 to 60 FPS mark. And that's kind of the only things that I have against this game, other than the occasional segments of some grindiness. But despite that, Abiotic Factor is great. Its survival elements are fleshed out, exploration is vast and rewarding, and for an early access game, I still can't get over just how much content there is in here. It's great in co-op, and its somewhat linear approach alongside the sheer volume of unlocks and craftables really hits that deep sense of progression that drives good survival games. Venturing deeper and deeper into this twisted labyrinth of a facility, facing off against aliens and strange worlds, the retro art style punctuates this game's great sense of charm and theme, and its overwhelmingly positive reviews speak for themselves, as this is just a fantastic survival game. And with the 1.0 release looking to be coming soon in the summer of 2025, as well as being announced to release on Xbox Game Pass, do not sleep on this title. Deep Field Games have done an incredible job with this game, and I have high hopes that Abiotic Factor will become a staple in the indie survival game genre. Thanks for watching, team. Ciao ciao!